Good afternoon. We begin with some big breaking news, a shakeup at Ford.
CEO Jim Hackett, who you will see in just a moment, will retire. Ford Chief Operating Officer Jim Farley will take his place, and that will be effective October 1st. Let's get right out to our Rod Maloney. He joins us now with a closer look at this big change. Rod?
Well, you know, Jim Hackett came to Ford many years ago, about 5 years ago, and found his way to the CEO job about 3 years ago. And he was an outsider, and he was CEO of Steelcase. He had a lot of ties to Silicon Valley, and that was the allure for Bill Ford. But Jim Hackett had to do a big turnaround as most of his tenure. Wall Street hasn't liked the way that's gone. They didn't feel it was quick enough. They didn't feel it was deep enough. And at the same time, Hackett took about the business of trying to sort of change the culture within Ford. And so it is not a surprise today that they go from a guy who was an outsider to a decided insider in the business. That's going to be 58-year-old James D. Farley Jr., who was the grandson of a guy who worked at the Highland Park plant in the early 1900s, and he is quite proud of that family heritage. Jim Farley had a lot of other jobs. He's currently the COO, Chief Operating Officer, but before that he was in charge of new business and technology and strategy. He was the EVP of global markets. Before that, Ford of Europe, worked in a turnaround there, and global marketing and sales before that. So Jim Farley now takes over as the CEO come October, and he has a lot of work ahead of him, but he talked about where Ford is right now and what he thinks is important.
And we're now a more curious and less insular culture today, thanks to Jim Hackett. He has laid a solid foundation for a vibrant future. You know, we know our competition today. It's Amazon, Baidu, Tesla, Apple, Toyota, and others. They're well-financed and voracious companies, and I'm inspired by the positive momentum that we're now building.
Now, Farley talked about a lot of non-automotive companies in there, and that is going to be his challenge, getting the autonomous vehicle, the electric vehicle, the infusion of high technology into cars and moving the company forward. Very difficult job, but it's one that he is clearly suited for. And of course, he's had a lifelong involvement in the industry. He came to Ford from Toyota, where he launched a brand there. And Michelle Krebs, who is the Auto Trader auto analyst that we turn to in moments like this, believes that Farley really is the right guy for the job right now.
You know, Jim Farley is a lot about, he understands the story, the emotion around products. If you look at the Ford Bronco, look what that's not out for another year, and look what that's doing. And so he understands that products have to be more than just the product and not be just a commodity. There has to be a story and some emotion around that. And I think that's one of the things he brings to the party.
So what we're going to see now is yet another CEO at Ford Motor Company and see where he can take the company. Wall Street certainly would like to see him take it in a different direction because the stock price is low. But the belief is that they've got a guy who is young, solid in the industry, and is ready to move forward in what promises to be a tough couple of years looking ahead. So we're going to be talking more about this on Local 4 News at 4, 5, and 6 in terms of what it is that Jim Farley does, where the company goes, and where it has been under Jim Hackett. So for now, reporting live from Dearborn, Rod Maloney, Local 4.